I didn't mean for her to hear it, the soft, rhythmic scrape of metal on stone. But when she appeared at the doorway, leaning just slightly against the frame, she said, almost under her breath, "God, I'd forgotten that sound." Her voice carried something half memory, half ache. She was my mom's friend, Elena. I'd seen her a dozen times before. At cookouts, birthdays, moments that blurred together. Always with that easy laugh, the kind that covered something private. But today was different. It was just us. The faint light of afternoon falling through the open garage, dust swirling like quiet ghosts. I was bent over the workbench, holding the blade steady, but my hands stalled when she stepped closer. She smelled like rain and cedar soap, the kind you find in guest bathrooms no one ever uses. Her hair, loose for once, brushed her shoulder as she looked around the room. Slowly, like she was trying to remember where she fit in. "You always help your mom with stuff like this?" She asked it casually, though her tone had that kind of softness that pulls your attention whether you want it to or not. "Yeah," I said. "Old tools need attention or they rust." She smiled. Faintly, not at the words, but at how I said them. The silence after stretched. Not uncomfortable, just thick. I felt it sitting between us. She moved closer, her hand brushing the edge of the table, fingertips tracing the old grooves in the wood. The sound of her skin against the grain made me forget what I was doing. "Your dad used to sharpen things like that too," she said. "Same sound. I always liked it." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and went back to work. But she didn't move away. Her reflection caught in the small square of mirror above the bench. Just her profile, but that was enough. The lines near her mouth didn't age her. They made her look lived in, real. When the whetstone hissed again, she closed her eyes. "That's it," she whispered. "That's exactly how it used to sound." Her hand was on the table beside mine now. Not touching, just close enough that the air felt charged, like a storm was somewhere nearby. "You miss it?" I asked. She opened her eyes and looked at me directly. "I miss a lot of things." Something in the way she said that made my throat tighten. I wanted to ask what she meant, but I didn't. Some questions ruin moments just by being spoken. She reached for the blade, fingertips grazing mine as she turned it to inspect the edge. It was nothing, that touch. Barely there. But she didn't pull back. "Sharp," she murmured. "Almost too sharp." Her eyes lifted to mine, a small smile forming. "Careful, you could cut yourself." "I'll risk it." That made her laugh, quiet and low. Then, for a second, she didn't seem like my mom's friend at all. She seemed like someone trying to remember who she used to be before years dulled her edges. Outside, a car door slammed. The moment broke. We both looked toward the sound, but neither of us stepped away. Then she said softly, "You should put that down before someone sees." I did, slowly, but she stayed where she was, close enough that I could still feel the warmth of her breath when she spoke again. "You always keep things this sharp?" I didn't answer, couldn't, because just then, the side door creaked open, and my mother's voice called from the hallway, "Elena, you still here?" Elena's eyes met mine. She smiled, small and secret. Then she stepped back, but not before her fingers brushed mine one last time. I didn't see her again for a few days, but she was there in the quiet parts of the house. The smell of her perfume on a towel she'd borrowed, the faint sound of her laughter from the memory of that afternoon. When she finally came back, it wasn't planned. She dropped by to help my mom pack boxes for the move. I was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing the counter when she walked in. Her hair tied up this time, a few loose strands falling over her face. "You're always working," she said. "You ever sit still?" "Not really," I said. "Feels wrong to just do nothing." She leaned on the counter beside me, her hand resting near the wet sponge, nails painted pale beige, no rings. For a woman who carried herself so sure, her hands always looked like they were searching for something to hold. She told me she'd been divorced for almost 6 years. "It wasn't dramatic," she said, her tone steady. "Just slow, like watching color fade from a photograph." I didn't know how to answer that, so I rinsed the sponge again, maybe harder than I needed to. Guess you get used to quiet, I said. You think so? She asked, her gaze drifting to the window. Sometimes I think quiet just gets heavier. Something in that line stuck to me. The way she said heavier, like it wasn't about sound at all. She reached past me to grab a dish towel. Her shoulder brushed mine. Just that small, accidental touch, but I froze. She didn't move right away. She stood close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her arm, smell the faint trace of something floral and unfamiliar. She noticed me noticing her. I could tell by the way she half smiled, half frowned, as if she was scolding herself for letting the air between us change. You're quiet today, she said, trying not to say the wrong thing. Maybe that's what makes it right. We both laughed softly. It didn't break the tension. It deepened it. She stepped back, but her hand lingered on my shoulder for a second. Firm, steady, then gone. I felt the heat of it even after she turned away. Later, when my mom left the room to take a call, Elena stayed behind, folding towels slower than necessary. You know, she said, not looking up, people talk when they don't understand something. You mean this? Her eyes flicked toward me, then away. Us talking, being too comfortable. There was no accusation in her tone, just the faint tremor of someone who knew how quickly a good thing could turn into the wrong thing. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came. Instead, she reached for another towel, folded it carefully, and pressed it into my hands. Her fingers brushed mine, slow, deliberate. Keep this one, she said, for polishing. She smiled again, small, restrained, but her eyes said too much. When she walked away, I didn't move. The towel was still warm from her hands. It started raining the next time she came by. Hard, relentless rain that blurred everything outside the windows. My mom had gone out for groceries and left Elena to wait until the storm eased. I was in the garage again, oil-stained rag in one hand, pretending to organize things that didn't need organizing. She came to the doorway, umbrella dripping, coat damp at the shoulders. Guess I'm stuck here, she said, shaking her hair loose. Could be worse places, I replied too quickly. She smiled, that small, knowing curve that always made me lose track of what I was doing. The space between us felt smaller this time. Maybe it was the sound of the rain, maybe just the silence that filled everything else. She moved toward the workbench, tracing the handle of the vise, the same one I'd used when she first said she missed that sound. You still sharpening? She asked. Sometimes, I said. Mostly just keeping things ready. Her eyes lingered on me longer than they should have. You always keep things ready, don't you? I didn't answer, couldn't. Lightning flashed through the small garage window, followed by a slow roll of thunder. The light caught her face, soft and wet at the edges, and I had to look away. You're staring, she said quietly. I wasn't. You were. Her voice wasn't teasing. It was closer to a whisper, something that wanted to be said but couldn't risk being heard. A phone buzzed suddenly, sharp, loud, wrong in that quiet moment. We both jumped. She reached into her coat pocket and froze when she saw the screen. It's your mom, she said, half smiling, half panicked. She's on her way back. She didn't answer it right away. The sound of the rain filled the pause. Elena, I said, but stopped when she looked at me. The way she held my gaze, it was too long, too direct. Everything else dropped away. The rain, the buzzing phone, the smell of wet concrete. She took a step closer, then another. Her hand brushed against my arm, fingertips barely there. The static between us was unbearable. This isn't, she started, her voice trembling just enough to make me forget what she meant to say. I nodded, even though neither of us moved. We shouldn't, she whispered. I know, but neither of us stepped back. Her hand slid down my arm until her palm rested against mine, and the weight of it said more than anything we could speak aloud. Then, a car door slammed outside. We jumped apart. She pulled her hand back fast, turned toward the window. She's home, Elena said, her voice suddenly even. She took a deep breath, straightened her coat, ran a hand through her hair like she could erase the last 30 seconds. At the door, she paused, turned. "You make it hard to stay away," she said softly. And then she was gone, leaving the smell of rain, the sound of thunder, and a silence that felt far too alive. It had been 2 weeks since that night in the garage. 2 weeks of pretending nothing had changed. But it had. Every time my mom mentioned Elena's name, something inside me twisted. Every time I saw her car in the driveway, I had to remind myself to breathe normally. That evening, Elena came by to drop off a set of dishes my mom had lent her. I told myself I wouldn't linger, just say hi, be polite, walk away. But she looked different, hair down, loose sweater, no makeup. Tired, but somehow lighter. "Your mom around?" she asked. "She's out. Grocery run." A pause. Long enough for both of us to register it. "Right?" she said softly. Of course. I should have said I was leaving. Instead, I asked if she wanted to wait inside. She hesitated, then stepped in, shaking the chill off her hands. The scent of rain followed her in, that same storm smell from before. We stood in the kitchen, neither of us touching the dishes she'd brought. "I shouldn't be here," she said after a moment. "Then why are you?" That question hung between us like a live wire. "Because you make it too easy to forget how it looks," she said, voice trembling. I took a step closer. "And how does it look?" Her eyes met mine. Calm on the surface, chaos underneath. Like I'm waiting for something that shouldn't happen. I don't know who moved first. 1 second we were standing apart. The next she was close enough for me to feel the warmth from her body. My hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch, didn't breathe, maybe. Her skin was cool against my fingers. Her eyes followed the motion, then found mine again. "You shouldn't do that," she whispered. "Then stop me." She didn't. The silence stretched until the only sound was her breath. Shallow, uneven. I could feel it against my throat. Her hand found my chest, palm flat, as if testing how fast my heart was going. "You're shaking," she said. "So are you." She laughed. Quiet, breathless. And the sound hit me harder than it should have. "This is insane," she murmured. "You're old enough to know what I want," I said. The truth was out before I could catch it. And once it was, there was no taking it back. She looked at me like she was searching for a way out and couldn't find one. Her thumb brushed my jaw, soft, trembling. "You think you want this," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But you don't know what it costs." "Maybe I do." Her lips parted, just barely, as if to say something more. But no words came. The air thickened. Every inch between us was electric. She leaned in slow, unsure. And for a heartbeat, I thought she'd crossed that last inch. Then the front door clicked. We froze. My mom's voice drifted in, muffled. "Elena? You still here?" Elena's eyes widened. She stepped back fast, hands still shaking. "Later," she whispered, not as a promise, but as a warning. And before I could answer, she was gone again, leaving me standing there, heartbeat still pounding against the print of her palm. The next morning, I told myself it was over. Whatever almost happened in that kitchen, it had to stay there, suspended in that half second before my mother's voice cut through the air. But the world didn't cooperate. She called later that day, her voice too steady, too calm. "Your mom said you could help me move a few boxes from the basement tomorrow. I'd ask someone else, but you're stronger." The pause after that word lingered longer than it should have. When I showed up, she already had music playing, old records, low and warm. The house smelled like oranges and something sweet baking. Everything about it felt deliberate, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. "We're just moving boxes," she said quickly, before I could speak. I didn't say otherwise, but the air between us already felt fragile, like one wrong word could break it. Downstairs, the light was dim, dust dancing in narrow beams. I lifted one of the boxes, heavier than it looked, and she reached out to steady it. Our hands brushed, not by accident. She flinched back a little too fast. Her breathing changed. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said. Like what? Like you know something I'm trying to forget. I set the box down slower than I needed to. Then stopped pretending. That made her freeze. She turned toward me, her face unreadable. You think I haven't been pretending? You think I don't wake up replaying that moment in your kitchen? The confession hit harder than I expected. She looked away immediately, as if the words had slipped out without permission. Elena? No, she said quickly. Don't. But the way she said it, half whisper, half plea, told me it wasn't about stopping. It was about not falling further. She turned back toward the shelves, trying to hide the shake in her hands. Your mother asked me, she said suddenly, voice trembling. She asked if I thought you were seeing someone. I told her no. You lied, I said quietly. I protected you, she snapped back. Then softer, I protected us. The word us landed like a spark. She stepped past me, too close, the fabric of her sweater brushing my arm. Neither of us moved. You shouldn't have to protect anything, I said. You don't understand, she whispered. If people knew, then maybe they should. Her eyes flashed. Fear, anger, want. All tangled. Don't say that, she said. You'll ruin everything. She tried to move past me, but I caught her wrist. Gently, just enough to make her stop. The music upstairs crackled. A low voice singing about love that came too late. Tell me to leave, I said. She looked down at our hands, at the space shrinking between us. Her breath came quick, uneven. I can't, she said finally. And with that, the careful line we'd drawn started to disappear. Box by box, breath by breath. The storm came back that night, sudden and heavy, like the sky had been holding it in too long. I was in the garage again, half hoping she wouldn't come, half knowing she would. When her car pulled up, headlights cutting through the rain, my pulse kicked hard enough to make me dizzy. She didn't even bother with an umbrella this time. Just ran through the downpour, hair soaked, sweater clinging to her shoulders. She pushed open the door, breathless. You shouldn't be here, I said, though my voice didn't sound convincing, even to me. Neither should you, she shot back, shaking rain from her hands. But here we are. Her tone wasn't sharp. It was tired, like she'd fought herself all the way here and lost. The air between us felt electric, alive with everything we hadn't said. I handed her a towel, and when she reached for it, our fingers touched. Small, ordinary, but it was enough. You're shaking, I said quietly. So are you. We both laughed under our breath, the kind of laugh that happens right before something breaks. She stepped closer, eyes searching mine, her voice soft. I don't want to be someone's mistake. You're not. Then what am I? I didn't have an answer. I just looked at her, really looked, the raindrops sliding down her hair, the tremor in her jaw as she tried not to cry, the years in her eyes that didn't make her older, just more real. I reached up and brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. My hand stayed there a second too long. She closed her eyes, leaned into it, barely, like she'd been waiting for that small permission. This isn't fair, she whispered. Maybe it doesn't have to be. Lightning flashed through the window, painting us both in white light. For a heartbeat, we were still. Inches apart, breath tangled, silence thick. Say something, I murmured. I'm trying not to. She opened her eyes again, and the look in them said everything she wouldn't say out loud. I could feel her heartbeat in the air, could almost count it. Her hand lifted, hesitant, trembling, and rested against my chest. I should go, she said, but didn't move. Then go. She didn't. We stood there, caught between sense and something bigger. The sound of the rain grew louder, the smell of wet metal, the warmth of her body just close enough to touch but not yet touching. If we do this, she whispered, we can't go back. Maybe we were never supposed to. For a moment it felt inevitable, like the world had been narrowing down to this single point. She leaned in, lips parting, breath trembling against mine. Then she stopped. Eyes still closed, she pulled in a sharp breath, stepped back slowly. No, she said. Not like this. Her voice cracked, but her eyes were clear now, calm in a way that hurt worse than anything else. I needed to know if it was real, she said. It is. That's why I have to stop. The rain softened outside, a hush after the storm. I nodded because I understood. Finally, she smiled, sad, grateful, alive. Then she turned, hand resting for 1 second on the doorframe. You'll remember this, she said quietly. Just don't chase ghosts. And she was gone, leaving behind the faint smell of rain, the echo of her breath, and the hollow sound of something almost beautiful ending exactly where it had to. A month passed, long enough for the rain to stop, for the air to turn warm again, for everything to look normal from the outside. My mom still talked about Elena sometimes. They saw each other now and then, traded plants, sent photos of their gardens. I listened quietly, said little. I'd stopped asking questions the moment I realized I didn't need to, because I saw her again, not by chance. It was late afternoon at the farmer's market. She was standing by a table of peaches, sunlight catching the fine lines around her eyes. She looked rested, softer somehow. She saw me before I could decide whether to walk away. Hey, she said, smiling a little. You look good. You too. We both hesitated. Then she picked up a peach, pressed her thumb gently against it and said, Still sharpening things? Yeah, I said, still trying to keep the edges clean. That made her laugh. The sound wasn't nervous this time. It was warm, honest. We found a quiet corner near the edge of the market, under a tree that hummed with bees. Neither of us mentioned what happened or didn't happen that night. It lived in the air between us, no longer heavy, just part of the truth we both carried. I thought about what you said, she began. About ghosts. About chasing them. She looked down at the grass, twisting the stem of a leaf between her fingers. You were right, in a way. I've been living like I already missed the best parts of my life. But maybe I just stopped looking for new ones. I didn't know what to say, so I did what I always did. Watched her hands. They were calmer now. Not searching, just resting. I never wanted to make things harder, I said quietly. You didn't. Her eyes lifted to mine. You reminded me I could still feel something that wasn't routine. A breeze moved between us, carrying the scent of peaches and rain-soaked earth. She took a small step closer. Not too close, just enough to close the space that had once felt dangerous. So, I said, what happens now? She smiled. Nothing we'll regret. She reached out, fingers brushing mine before sliding into them fully. No hesitation this time, just warmth, and the quiet pulse of two people finally letting go of what they should feel and settling into what they do. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. She leaned in, resting her forehead against mine for a moment that felt like a heartbeat stretched across time. You were right about one thing, she whispered. Some things are worth keeping sharp. I smiled. So we keep them. And for the first time, it didn't feel like the end of something impossible. It felt like the beginning of something honest. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?